This issue was pretty worthless. Kind of a waste.
Yeah, we barely need to go through it, right?
There's some stuff going on, maybe the first 2 or 3 pages, but then it's just sort of waste of time. Everything we already kind of know. Oh, here's a whole page dedicated to giving you guys costumes.
Oh, here, let me record the intro. You say, I'm Dan Spottswood. When we get to it.
I'm Dan Spottswood.
You son of a bitch. This is another episode of Flight Ringers.
I'm Dan Spottswood.
Jesus Christ.
I'm Dan Spottswood.
This is another episode of the Flight Ringers podcast. I'm David King.
I'm Dan Spottswood.
Go faster. Do a faster one.
I'm Dan Spottswood.
We're professional cartoonists. We're Legion of Superheroes experts. All right, then we can start. Now we can start. You're not going to say anything else?
I'm Dan Spottswood.
Legion of Superheroes number 8.
Today, we are returning to the 5 years later, saga that we are slowly crawling through. We have reached issue 8, which on the cover says the origin of the Legion of Superheroes. At last, it can be told.
What's funny about that is that this will be the third time among these 8 issues that they've told the origin of the Legion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the fans never get tired of this origin or an origin for these guys.
A little brief backstory here. At this time, at least according to Tom Bierbaum, Keith Giffen was falling behind, probably because he was doing 7 or 8 books a month at the time. And they had to do a fill-in issue. He didn't have time to draw a full book. The editor at the time, which is named Michael Early.
Oh, Yuri,
I
guess.
Suggested that they take this opportunity to recap the origin. I guess the idea being, now that we're in the Glorith verse, maybe they could explain how different it was. And in Tom's mind, little to nothing had changed. Like they were trying to change as little as possible. So he saw it as a big waste of time. So he and his wife sort of wrote a story that ostensibly is a recap of the origin, but he focused more on other things that hadn't been explored as much, like the background of Marla, who is the Legion's liaison / chaperone.
And their soccer coach.
He's listed as their chaperone, I think, in the Who's Who. But anyway.
He's their adult advisor. That's his official title, I think.
Right. And also they wanted to try to clear up some of the discrepancies in RJ Brand's background, because at this point it had been established in Legion, Legion, that he is from the 20th century. And that created a few problems with what had been established about him in the regular Legion book, because he has a cousin, he has a kid. We know that the kid had a mother that we saw in an earlier issue. There are just some inconsistencies that this story tries to sort of fix. Also note the cover, at least half of it is drawn by Kurt Swan. It looks like Anderson as well, right? Or is that Murphy Anderson?
Well, yeah, it says Anderson, but the inking on the Kurt Swan part still looks like Al Gordon to me. So I don't know where Anderson fits into it.
This may be, I'm not positive on it, but this may be Kurt Swan's last Legion contribution.
Oh, really?
Unless you can think of something.
Well, those Who's Who things, I'm not sure when those came out. Not Who's Who. Secret Origins.
Did he do some of that?
I think didn't he do the Fortress Lad comic?
I thought that was Ty Templeton.
I think it was Swan inked by Ty Templeton. Yeah, that Secret Origins issue, that it's dedicated to the headquarters of Legion of Superheroes, Justice League, and the Batcave or something like that. And on the cover, it has this logo, Legion logo on it. So it was done around this time.
I didn't realize that series was still running this late.
Maybe in the letters page to this, somebody mentioned that stuff. Oh, no, I was reading about Chris Sprouse, and he had done one of them. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I always forget about those Secret Origins. There's a handful of them. There's 4 or 5 of them maybe that were Legion related. Right. But I think they all came out around this time or somewhere during the Baxter period and into the 5 years later.
Right.
So yeah, maybe Swan did that at the end. Maybe Swan did some Who's Who, loose leaf binder, Who's Who stuff. But yeah, it's definitely among his final jobs for DC or altogether. I don't know if he did anything besides DC.
Yeah, to my knowledge, he did one drawing for Marvel. for like the Marvel Universe handbook. He drew this character named Gladiator, who's sort of an alien version of Superman.
Oh, he has the
So they
mohawk,
probably
right?
right. So they think they kind of deliberately picked him, the Superman artist, to draw him. He's probably one of the main names, along with, like, say, Keith Giffen, in terms of artists associated with the Legion, I'd say. But he kind of hated drawing that book. I think a lot of artists did, especially the guys who just are more craftsman-like and just see it as a job. It's kind of a pain in the ass to draw so many characters and all the science fiction-y backgrounds.
Yeah, I can imagine that, like, back in the old days, there was no story Bible or whatever design
Right,
handbook that clued you into what all the costumes look like and stuff like that. So,
right,
I mean, there's the back cover of that Amazing World of DC Legion handbook thing has this grid of swan designs, and I think they claim that that's what he has hanging up on his wall so he can know the costumes. That may
right.
be or maybe not true, but yeah, he may be the first person to do something like that.
Well, it's very tricky with these guys too. Another thing that makes them a pain in the ass for an artist like him is because they're sort of modeled off Superboy. None of them have masks, so you have to like start working out different haircuts basically to try to distinguish the characters.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Nice half a drawing by Kurt Swan here. Cosmic Boy's hair looks kind of crazy, but that's no complaints otherwise. Yeah, so it's kind of told from the point of view of Marla, I guess. He's kind of the starting point. This is maybe the most airtime Marla has ever gotten in a Legion comic. He's kind of the star of at least of the kind of bookend stuff, the Giffen stuff in this issue. Would you
Yeah,
agree with that?
maybe, probably. I mean, I feel like he's gotten attention a couple of times through Legion history, but never too much. I think he's like one of the great unsung characters. Like, I love the idea of him. Like, I'd love a series just about him. Like, kind of going. There's obviously absolutely no market for this, but a series that sort of recapped uh, all their early adventures, but from his point of view, because I see him as kind of a guy who's sort of keeping them alive behind the scenes. Like, he's the guy who is making sure all the damage they're causing is getting paid for, and he might even be like taking out snipers that they're unaware of. Like, he's like
Oh
the
yeah.
streets. He's sort of like a street smart older adventurer who this crazy billionaire is ordered to like throw these like 15-year-old kids out into danger's way, and he
Oh
wants them
yeah.
to feel like they're completely independent, but he's probably constantly having to sort of save their ass.
It's an interesting angle, especially the espionage part of it.
Right.
They make that kind of take on him sort of impossible with this story, as I recall. I'm sorry, I read this last week. The details are probably all slipping
I
away.
don't think so. We know he sort of receded. He was less involved as they got older. But when they first got started, I think he was pretty heavily involved.
Well,
And they
right.
were definitely kids at that time.
But see, in this story, they show Marla's origin being like a shipping manager or something at Metropolis Spaceport, or he's like he's a union guy, longshoreman or something, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
working at a desk. He's not like
There's some
a
pretty
guy who,
considerable gaps, though. I feel like, he seems like an adventurer type. I mean, here he's jumping in a fight here. And
yeah, he's sort of taking charge. That's true.
he's definitely more pragmatic and I think able than RJ kind of is, who's always RJ is just the guy who comes up with impossible ideas, and he's the guy who has to somehow make it work. Billionaires are.
Yeah, he's the man behind the millionaire or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the story sort of flashes back to the first day that Marla ever met RJ Brand, and he's back at the Metropolis Spaceport.
Working on the docks.
I guess this picks up immediately after Legion 90 number 8 or 9 or whatever it is when the switch happens among the Durlan or between the Durlan and Phantom Girl. Like the Durlan disappears from the 20th century, and then I guess he shows up right here. Is kind of
Right.
how I understood this to happen.
It's kind of contrived because it's not like a one for one switch out. Like, she gets yanked out of a completely different time
Hmm.
and put in his place in the 20th century. I'm not quite sure who this girl is he's longing after, but they return to her enough. She must have some significance
Oh, her name is Taylor, right?
because she marries some wealthy.
Yeah, I think she becomes later on the president of Earth is someone named Taylor Wellington. And I don't
Oh,
know if
okay.
she's supposed to be this woman who becomes the president of Earth. Like the character design is like totally different, you know.
Okay.
But also, I don't know, maybe she ages into the look of this other character. And I think only Jason Pearson ever drew her, so big change, you know. But yeah, that's the
Right.
only the fact that they name her Taylor and give her this detail of getting married to a rich guy, and then
Mhm.
later they have President Taylor. Yeah, it must be the same person, right?
Right. That makes sense. We have a bunch of nationalist types or planetist. I don't know what you would call it on a global scale, but
Yeah, Earth first.
right. Beating on this poor alien, and he intervenes, kind of gets his ass kicked too until he manages to deactivate the force field that's inhibiting him. The force field's a little weird to me. I don't understand why the force, like they can beat him through the force field, but he can't hit back through the force field.
Yeah, it's like the force field is like a fishing net or something, right? Like he can't get out of it, but they can hit him and hurt him.
But I guess it would make sense for police to have something that is allowing them to, beat the shit out of whoever they've apprehended and they can't bite back. That seems
Oh yeah, it'd
very
be perfect for the science police to
right.
have a device that would do that. I
Mhm.
wasn't clear on how he even showed up within that force field.
Uh-huh.
Like when he appeared, he was in a force field, I guess, and these guys just started beating him up because like they recognized him as a Durlin. I can't remember the detail. And I guess everyone can tell this is a Durlin.
It seems like he must have been apprehended, right? Because there's a switch.
She just says, "I don't know." He popped up out of nowhere.
Interesting, because Marla deactivates the force field, right? So maybe it's some sort of security force field that kicked in when he appeared out of nowhere, I guess.
Yeah, maybe like an unauthorized person immediately gets trapped in a force field.
Right.
I mean, I think they have a plan for this stuff. Like even the like it occurred to me when you mentioned the Phantom Girl thing, how she gets transported from the 30th century back to the 20th century at a point like in Jesus
During the
Christ.
5 year gap,
Yeah,
somewhere in
yeah,
the 5 year gap.
during the 5 year gap. Meanwhile, when the exchange happens and the Durlin moves from the 20th century to the 30th century, he's back in the
Like 45
2960s
years
or
previous.
yeah, or 30 or something like that. But I think it must be because like they must kind of want to combine this with the storytelling in the Legion Annual. We haven't talked about it yet, but
Mhm.
it's that's all about Ultra Boy putting two and two together to determine that Glorith is the time trapper or something like that. And so I
Right.
think the removal of Phantom Girl was like revenge against him. And so
Yeah,
that's
that
why
sounds right.
Phantom Girl disappeared from that point the day after or the day before they were going to get married or something like that.
Mhm.
And but then she also needed the Durlin to fill this certain point to make all the dominoes fall in her favor in history or something. And so she
Mhm.
put him back here so that he could meet up with Marla and with this guy Theg. Is that his name? So
It
there
is.
there must be a plan behind that, even though it doesn't quite make sense. I guess it almost seems like some seat of their pants kind of plotting, like, oh, we've got to figure this out. So it becomes a little
Right.
contrived, but also like they
Mhm.
make a whole big thing out of it. Like that's a whole big fat annual issue that
Mhm.
puts Ultra Boy in the bad graces of Glorith.
Right.
More than the rest of her mortal enemies, the Legion, I guess.
Yeah, I remember that being pretty good. Like, it was sort of implying that he is a lot smarter than he
Ever was.
presents himself as.
Yeah, I haven't read that one in a long time, but yeah, it might be fun to check that one out again.
Soon. So Marla wants to try to get this guy back to Durla. So he takes him to the only Durlan he knows, who's kind of a smuggler named Theg. Now he's shown up before, right?
I don't think so.
I think he has. I think that's part of the purpose of this.
Well, okay, I think he has showed up before, but I think this is a new kind of iteration of him. I think he's changed from being like I was just kind of reading about this like on Wikipedia and stuff. I think
Uh,
before the Glorithverse reboot thing, RJ Brand had a cousin back on Durla, and it was this guy, and they left the planet together on and on after that. And and he wasn't necessarily a smuggler or whatever. He was
okay.
he was like just a Durlan dude, just like RJ Brand was.
Right.
But this is a new kind of iteration where they're not actually related. Thig is a native of the 30th century, whereas this Durlan, who becomes R.J. Brand, is from the 20th century.
Right. So they get around that by saying that like they're kind of technically cousins through
being
marriage.
The same race. Oh,
no, because
Brand marries his sister or something, doesn't
right,
he?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but at this point in the story, they're not related. They don't know each other.
This is always a sort of inelegant thing about the Durlians as they've developed them over the decades is there's like these strange inconsistencies in how they're drawn. Like got the original way, like Chameleon Boy looks orange with more humanoid with the antenna, and then these sort of more bug-like versions of them. And sure, that makes sense since they're shapeshifters, but if they are hated by just about everybody in the universe, why would they even bother with the orange antennaed version? Why wouldn't they just try to look like whoever they were trying to blend in with?
Search me, I don't know. And this version, like, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Right.
Giffen traditionally drew them with their hood up and just some tentacles sticking out. Sprouse is drawing, and he looks different between the two pages here even. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. That doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't just like adapt and look like a version of whatever planet they're on or something, right?
Right, especially since they're persecuted.
Yeah.
But, anyway, when Theg attempts to communicate with him, he realizes he's speaking like this kind of ancient dialect. They're flabbergasted as to they have no idea where this guy's from. Why is he speaking this ancient language? And he can't remember where he came from. He's suffering from memory loss.
Did he have the memory loss back in the Legion 89 days?
See, I never read Legion 89. I mean, I picked up an odd issue. It never seemed connected enough to Legion to like, I never felt like I had to complete that series to understand.
I read the first issue last week.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really shed any light on this, really. And then I flipped through the first two issues of Invasion today. I guess that's where this guy's first appearance was, in Invasion number 1. Didn't really shed any light on that either. Only that he was like best bros with Vrildox the Second,
right?
Who we know as Brainiac 5's ancient ancestor, the son of the original Brainiac, or yeah, that's who he is, the son of the original Brainiac.
This felt like those two books were kind of at cross purposes with one another, which is weird to me since Giffen handed both of them because. Like beginning with Invasion, the idea, one of the main underlying ideas, I believe, is they were trying to sort of bring the Legion universe into the 20th century, like connect the dots between the two. Which is why you have the beginnings of like the Earth seeding, the appearance of Largand. You start seeing characters that before we'd only seen in the Legion, like the Dominators interacting with the regular. And then you have like Brainiac 2 or, Brainiac's son in it. It almost seemed like they were trying to rewrite things. Like they were saying like that Legion would eventually become the Legion of the future in the post-crisis world. And of course they don't end up doing that. Like they're two completely independent things.
Right. I don't know if they actually were trying to do that. I think the similarity that they were putting out there was that the guys in Legion 89 were like the good guy alien races that are in the 30th century. And yeah, they used the fucking descendant characters.
But I mean, it's sort of explicit, isn't it? It's like, it's the Legion, but in 89.
Yeah, but actually it's set up as they had just gotten rid of the Green Lanterns, and these guys were the new space police.
Right.
And that's, to me, it seems like that was more the direction they were going to do, is like, it's more like space police. And there is a similarity that we're using ancestors of the Legion people, but I don't think it ever got set up like we're gonna, the Legion team is gonna last for 1,000 years, and that's where the Legion came from. I mean, that was probably somebody's idea. Somebody was like, yeah, we can maybe do that, but I don't think it was ever really going to work. And I bet they discovered that right away, that like, well, we can't really make that happen. It wouldn't make sense to do it that way. But then also, like, having this Durlin guy go from the past into the future and start up his own Legion of Superheroes, he never is like, no, I'm inspired by the space police force that I used to be part of back in the 20th century, as like that's where I got the name for the Legion of Superheroes. Like, he never said that, I don't think.
Right.
So I don't know. They gave up on that idea. Whether they had it for a long-term plan or somebody threw it out there, they gave up on it as a real way to connect up the future teen superheroes with the 20th century space police force.
And all this Legion talk is making me want to read it.
I thought you were going to say it's making you want to stop talking about it.
No. Making me want to talk about something entirely different.
Yeah, like, I want to turn this off and go watch TV. But yeah, they don't behave like the Legion of Superheroes. They don't pretend to be a Legion of Superheroes team in Legion 89. I mean, from the one issue I read, but it doesn't seem like it's going to go in that direction whatsoever.
Like maybe that was the rough concept, but once they started doing it, like, it grew into its own thing. We know, of course, at some point they dumped the Legion name even.
Right. They're rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that invasion thing, it did a lot of like nailing down stuff. Like, it didn't do anything like really earth shaking or whatever. Like, it was a silly story where aliens invade Earth and they blow up some towns. I think they kill like the Omega Men or a bunch of them. Like, Giffen liked to do that. Giffen plotted and breakdowned Invasion, so it's his baby again. It's like you said, it's the future. Aliens are kind of along with the Hawkman planet and maybe another more 20th century planet of aliens.
I mean, I think it's largely an attempt, in many ways DC is constantly trying to catch up with Marvel, and I think much like Crisis, it was an attempt to create a more cohesive universe. So it would make sense that at least some of those alien races were around in the 20th century, and why haven't we run into them yet?
Yeah. And not only do they bring in those aliens, they bring in the fact that like superhero powers is like genetic. And if you get struck by the right kind of lightning or whatever, you get superpowers when you didn't have them before, or whatever that is.
The metagene or something like that.
Yeah. They started calling them metahumans after this instead of superheroes.
Dumb.
Well, yeah, they spun out like the Valor series and Legion 89.
Yep.
And there had to have been like maybe 2 other series that came out of this thing. Actually, Valor came from the Eclipso series.
Yeah.
But he first showed up, I guess, or his dad or somebody first showed up in the Invasion series. But yeah, the Invasion series is a way to tie the 20th century world of DC Comics to the 30th century world of DC Comics, but not too tightly. It's just like it shows us that the Dominators that we've seen in Legion are actually, they existed way back then.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think it parallels what Giffen did later over at Marvel with Annihilation, where he's taking a lot of space characters and pulling them all together and figuring out a way to, like, over there, he took like a lot of those old Kirby monsters that hadn't been used very much and sort of like Groot and integrated it in. He's like creating a cosmic universe kind of.
Yeah, as a way to increase the back issue value of those.
Right, the ones
those Kirby comics that until now had no connection to the Marvel universe, right? Now we need them. Now we need them for our collection.
Oh, and most importantly, the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah. That
smart.
one's hot right now.
That's what I would do too if I created him.
Yeah. Well, I think he was getting some money for Bill Mantlo, right? He had to have
hopefully been. Yeah, I think Mantlo.
I think those guys were buddies. Like, Mantlo even wrote Invasion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think they were.
And at the time of Annihilation, Mantlo was in his current circumstances.
Unfortunate circumstances. Yeah. They started working together towards the beginning of Giffen's career.
Yeah.
He worked on and off throughout. I'm pretty sure Marvel got shamed into throwing him a bone. or two, Matt Lowe.
No pieces of
He
shit.
became like he like quit comics and became like a, what do you call those guys? Like a public defender, or
Oh,
what's the
was he?
good kind of lawyer? Like the lawyer that stands up for the little guy.
Oh, well, public defender is the guy who works for the state, I think,
Okay,
right?
that's the bad guy.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I
yeah,
guess it depends
DA
on
and
the
public defender,
circumstance.
but yeah, he was like a defense attorney, I guess, or
Yeah.
a criminal defense attorney.
Yeah, but there was some activist element to it. He wasn't just
Yeah.
defending anybody.
Yeah, I don't know what those guys are called. Like in the movies, they're always real shabby because they don't have any money and they never win any cases. And the
Right.
other lawyers hate them because
Drinking problem.
they're not trying to get a profit.
So anyway, Marla convinces I already forgot his name again. Thecht. Is it Thecht?
I think it's Theg, Theg.
Thig convinces him to smuggle RJ back to Durlia, which turns out to be a big mistake because they get stuck there. The society is really oppressive, regressive.
Backward. Yeah, whatever.
Right. So they're stuck there for about 10 years, I think. But he ends up finding himself a lady or other sex.
A thing.
Having a couple children. And before infecting her and killing her with the what's it called, the
Yorgian fever.
The Yorgian fever. I guess Doyle brought the Yorgian fever.
Yeah, Doyle, that's who he is. Doyle,
yeah, that's his
Doyle.
Earth name.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and this puts RJ Brand into the classic position of a single widower father, Andy Griffith style.
Not for long though, because those guys get quarantined and taken away from the rest of them, Doyle and RJ. So he leaves his children with one of Doyle's other sisters named Jai, and she is the woman who was introduced to us as Reap's mother in that issue we read with the
really?
adults.
So they fixed this then, huh?
They fixed it.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. So
yeah.
in that one she was his mother, but they didn't know that yet, or they didn't know yet that she wasn't actually his mother, but she was his aunt who raised him.
Yeah, I mean,
like Jack Nicholson.
She's still sort of his mother because she raised him. She's as much his mother as like Martha Kent.
Right. I wonder if he knows that she's not his biological mother.
Yeah, it seems like he would know by now, right? After he realized Brand.
So I guess he must have gone up until he discovered Brand was actually his father, thinking that this woman's his mother instead of his actual mother who died of Yorgian fever,
right?
Murdered by his father, R.J. Brand.
A lot of opinions about R.J. Brand, but I might save them till we do the thing at the end that talks about his fortune.
Oh, is that the text page?
Yeah.
Don't remember that.
Yeah, it's his American dream story about grit and hard work and how he became a billionaire and whatever.
I mean, we could talk about that now. To me, this issue is just about R.J. Brand, and it builds up him in a way that he never really had been before. And pretty much after this page, I think it kind of matches up with the stuff we already knew about Brand from right. Secrets of the Legion, while the early stuff in this issue is kind of the new retroactive continuity stuff that they invented to hook up with whatever the dude from Invasion and Legion 90 or whatever.
Which dude?
The Durlin dude from
right.
The 20th century. Right,
because they, like I think we already described, they wanted the Bierbaums to just do the new version of the Origin, but that is, they were sort of opposed to that, not only because it's repetitive, but because the whole point of like installing all these analogs is they're trying to say not that much is going to change. So if we told the Origin again, it's going to be pretty close to the way it already was.
Right.
So they decided to pivot and use the issue to explain all the inconsistencies with RJ's backstory.
Yeah, and which there aren't many.
Right.
You know, like as I recalled, it's pretty much the same story we know once he goes back to Earth with Theg, Doyle, his brother from another mother.
Right. I had forgotten where Theg came in to begin with, to have to explain him. He must have shown up sometime after the reveal, obviously.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I don't remember when that happened.
Maybe he's in Secrets. Maybe he's in Secrets of the Legion.
It could be. It seems like that's when they explained the shit about R.J. Brand.
I was just flipping through that. I think that's Jimmy Jane's, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
first page is him in some sort of suspended animation, and he's in tights and he's totally ripped.
R.J. Brand.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it. I got this comic that has his first issue in, or first appearance in it.
Key issue.
Yeah, Adventure 350. He's just a footnote. He doesn't really do much in this. Here he is. He's on the last page of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is a two-parter. I think it continues into the next issue. But R.J. Brand, richest man in the universe, calls him up and has some mission for the Legionnaires. And a couple of them are like, what's the deal with this guy that he's got a direct line to the Legion of Superheroes? And then they explain that he's the richest man in the galaxy and he pays for some of the Legion of Superheroes stuff. They don't say that he is the sole underwriter of the whole group and created it. They hadn't thought of that yet.
I don't know why they thought of it in the first place. Like, why do you need... I mean, couldn't the government couldn't tax money be paying for them or in some way?
It could, yeah. I don't know. I mean, later on, that's what Mark Waid did in the reboot thing, where it's their government outfit. And in this, it's, I guess Jim Shooter who wrote this. I think it's Shooter. Mm-hmm. Or it might be, you know what? I think it's actually Bridwell maybe wrote this. That guy is all for private enterprise.
Right. We need a benevolent billionaire in there.
Yeah. Cosmic Boy says he's the Santa Claus whose endowment helps support the Legion. So I guess the Legion in its early days as a superhero club, they go out and they have to pound the pavement to find money. And they convince this sucker to endow them with a little bit of money every
year. They're going to door selling magazine subscriptions.
Right.
Cookies.
Legion cookies, and they're in the shape of an L.
Yeah. I guess the government's still paying for them. It's just through tax write-offs and subsidizing Brand's fortune.
But speaking of Marla, it occurred to me that Marla is actually an older character than Brand, or he was introduced much earlier than Brand was. And they just kind of folded him into the Brand organization later on.
Right.
And as made clear in this issue 8, where Brand is like an integral part of the Brand operation, and it shows his backstory a little bit.
Right.
But my question about Brand was, and I don't think they even explained it in the text page because I don't have any memory of it, is how is he the scientific genius who has the technology to make stars?
Right.
Because
no sense.
Yeah, he wasn't like a big scientist or anything in the 20th century, and I don't know what 20th century technology there would be that they weren't using back then that they could use in the 30th century, 1,000 years later. This one random dude knew.
You would think this would be a perfect opportunity to sort of engineer some explanation for his wealth. Like, he only had like $30 in his bank account when back in the 20th century, and through interest, he became a billionaire or something.
Right. Yeah. He bought some Apple stock back in the 20th century.
Right.
Yeah. They didn't do that.
Right. They didn't exploit it at all. Or they could have said maybe Brainiac 2 docs gave him some information that he used later for the star stuff. In this, it just says he just picked it up real quickly, like stellar engineering.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb.
By all his grit, and picked himself up by his bootstraps.
Well, and he helped along this total dead weight Thig guy who's just a corrupt bum, hanging out with babes all the time. What was he? He was like a smuggler or something, or a loan shark before.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like initially when they go into business, I think they're doing something related to what he was doing before.
Yeah, he says he's a smuggler. Smuggling people from like unpopular people around the planet, like refugees and stuff, I guess, or around the galaxy would be what he does. Like you pay him an exorbitant amount, a person with nothing, and you pay this guy a ton of money, and then he will maybe get you where you want to go, or maybe he'll leave you in a spaceship with 1,000 other people to freeze to death. That may be what happens with this guy.
Well, we know he doesn't have a problem with slave labor because that's how Marla talked him into taking RJ in the first place. Maybe that's how he built the fortune.
Could be. It's really strange that RJ Brand, and even in his earlier identity as just the Derlin, quote unquote, he's a nice, benevolent dude. He was working with these heroes back in the 20th century. And he's happy to team up with this grungy, awful smuggler guy who's just like dead weight. Like Brand is the guy who picks up celestial engineering real fast. He's the hero of the universe. But then he's got this corrupt loser guy. Like, what's the attraction between these two?
Well, he knocked his sister up, so.
Oh, so
he probably feels some sort of responsibility for him. When they first start business, when they go into business together after leaving Durla, they have a shipping business. It was like Doyle's shipping business, maybe that's the legit business he had before.
It's the cover for the smuggling.
And build it up.
Goes from like Berkshire Hathaway or whatever, goes from selling appliances to the biggest investment firm on the planet or the whatever.
That's the real story, like that needs to be told. Like the Legion is just like a tax write-off to make him look like a good dude. What is he trying to live down? Or this is his Rockefeller thing, like his good philanthropy work to look like a human being. What's he doing? What's he really doing?
That's a good way to say it, to look like a human being.
Right.
Because he's a shapeshifter.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder, that would be a good story. That would be good backstory that no one has ever approached.
Right.
Because he can't be good, right? We talk about this all the time. He's got to be awful. He's got to be garbage.
Right.
Just like a vampire on society.
Maybe all these planets, is he building planets or stars? Did we decide? Was it both?
I think it's stars. I think now it's stars. I think maybe the change from like terraforming to stars happened with the Glorithverse. Mordruverse to Glorithverse switch over.
Maybe he's just going to planets and giving people Yurgian fever. They all die and, hey, I just made this planet.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he's this typhoid Mary of Yorgian fever. He's like, I don't know, they all died.
Or these stars that he's building, they're like incinerating indigenous planets.
Well, they totally would be, I think. Yeah. Like they would be sucking all the life out of an entire sector of space to turn it into a new star system. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very skeptical of the star making business.
So where are we? We are. So RJ, once they start the business and they start becoming successful, he remembers Marla from the docks and goes to recruit him to basically do all the work for him because he has no practical knowledge, being a out of touch billionaire. Why he'd want to get the guy who like sold him as a slave to help him, I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, he stopped a couple of dudes from beating him up. Yeah, but then sold him into slavery.
Right. One thing about him being a billionaire that seems realistic and consistent is his like obsession with meaningless bullshit, like all this 20th century memorabilia.
Oh yeah, they kind of make it seem like he loses focus, right?
Like like Marla has to run the business because one brother is just a fuck up and the other one is his head's in the clouds. He's obsessed with his collection.
Yeah, really in the clouds, right? They show his collection somewhere. Yeah, right. He's got like this big statue of I guess it's Valor now. He's got some Hawkman stuff. I bet he has all the superpowers, action figures.
Yeah.
Like it's not just the 20th
Action Comics 1.
Right. It's not just the 20th century. It's the superhero specifically. He doesn't have anything about Superman, though, which is kind of unusual, kind of a striking disparity there.
What is up with that?
But what is that? Is that Lobo's motorcycle back there? And there's some kind of Legion 90 stuff here.
Yep.
And a car. I don't know whose Toyota this is.
Yeah.
But he's way down the rabbit hole of collecting superhero shit.
Maybe that's a Black Hawk plane. I don't know.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. He needs that giant Batcave penny.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe some other future guy has that.
Probably. Well, yeah, it shows up in that later issue, right?
Oh yeah, they end up in the Batcave, don't they?
Yeah, it's a gag.
Like the SW6 guys or something.
No, it's before that. It's in
Oh.
it's in one of the funny Matter Eater Lad issues.
So then we get our obligatory origin recap, and they do this pretty well. I like how you just see little bits of it on the TV.
Oh yeah, they don't, like, I was flipping through here waiting to see the kids on the space flight. They don't do it. They don't recap that thing once again for us. Yeah,
Right.
it's Marla watching TV, I guess, or yeah, Marla.
I think the Bierbaums want to. Not only do they not want to change, they want to change as little as possible, but they also want to obscure anything that might be changed because they don't want to turn readers off. So they just want to show you bits and pieces of it. They don't want to do anything that's going to possibly contradict what we'd seen before.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I can see it making sense to not just, I mean, it'd be a ton more work for the writer to lay it all out. Like, here's 2 issues in a row that show everything that's changed. Super boring. Just paints yourself into a corner as a writer.
Right.
And there's no mystery there, right? I feel like there's probably a lot of readers who don't want mystery and they just want to know everything beat by beat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't make for a good comic.
Well, yeah, probably everybody wants, the readers crave, they want to know everything that's changed, but you can't give it all away.
Yeah, you got to dole it out little by little, and then it's a surprise and a mystery of what's different.
This is also a good time maybe to bring up a possible abandoned Legion series. I think that may have existed before they came up with Legionnaires, because there was that Who's Who early years. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it shows them all, but they look like the Legionnaires, like the updated versions of their original costumes.
Yeah, I was reading there's a chapter in the Chris Sprouse. It's called Modern Masters, that Tomorrow's series.
Yep.
Where he talks about that. And he says, yes, when he did this issue, they were already in the works on what would become Legionnaires. But at that point, way back here in Legion 8, it was going to be retelling their early adventures. I mean, that seems kind of counter to what we were just talking about, like making explicit all the changes. But I mean, I guess if they thought it was a big enough success that they needed a second Legion book, I guess you could do it that way.
Right. And that would end up contradicting some of the things that happen in the next few pages, because they're clearly wearing their original costumes.
Right.
Not the ones with the big pockets and the L belts.
Yeah. I mean, they do sort of say that they only wore these one time or for a little bit because they sucked, I guess. Right.
That's the next 2 or 3 pages just seem to be like finding excuses for why the Silver Age was so silly. Like RJ Brand's a nut, and that's why they're in a spaceship clubhouse. And he's the one that insists on having Triplicate Girl, even though she's clearly useless. I disagree with that personally, but I know that's what a lot of fandom thinks.
Wait, where do they make it seem like he thinks she's more useful than she is?
He says something like everyone has value, or everyone has their talent, or he says, my friend, everyone has something unique to contribute, and she will be no exception.
Marla says Renee had a little more faith in the youngsters than I did.
Right.
And he does seem, or the whole concept seems ludicrous. Like you're going to recruit kids to be a superhero force when your inspiration is one guy, I guess, or Hawkman and Valor or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I kind of wish they would have gone more into like Marla trying to like, is this really a good idea? Like, we're going to take all these like 16-year-old kids and like throw them at the Fatal Five, or sounds like a lot of lawsuits. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, people have been talking about this since the days of Batman and Robin.
Right.
About having kids go out and do this kind of stuff. Like as ludicrous as it is for adults, even more ludicrous for a little kid to be doing it.
Right. And that's why I think a Marla series.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess a Marla and RJ series. Yeah, where he's like picking up the pieces. Like the RJ Brand has lost his mind, I guess. Like he's entering dementia. I don't know how he would or why he would. but he's like off the deep end. He's like, no, let's get more kids to be superheroes. Let's put them into
It's
a
not
silly rocket ship.
dementia. It's not dementia. It's a billionaire brain.
Billionaire brain, Jorgen fever brain.
Right.
Marla, I guess, would have no power to be like, we're not doing this anymore. You know, like I've fixed it so I have power of attorney, and you can't do anymore.
Right. He just has to keep it from blowing up in his face.
Yeah.
He has to somehow make his impossible ideas work.
Yeah, it would be that series would be a testament to the creativity of Second Banana or middle manager types or something like that. We'll workshop it.
In the zillions of like dumb ideas I thought of how to continue the series, I've thought of variations of this. Like if we were to continue the 5 years later continuity, 20 years on, and they're the new kids, maybe like Rock Kren and maybe Violet are the new Marlas, and they're having to do something similar, like keep these kids alive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I even thought one time, like maybe if it was sort of like it's a reality TV show in the future, like the whole thing's being filmed and
oh yeah, just to get
being cast and all that shit. A certain amount of it is almost like engineered. Like, we're pretty sure the kids can take this guy, so we'll let him.
Oh yeah, it would just be like another this week's challenge. Like if you guys don't beat the Fatal Five, one of you is going home. I sort of like the idea, and this comic kind of gave me that idea that, like when some of the Legionnaires don't know who Brand is, and Cosmic Boy's like, oh yeah, he's the guy who pays us. That there are certain Legionnaires who will be like act as the go-between between Brand and the rest of the team, and the rest of the team they don't even know who this guy is really. He's just some dude. But like and Brand couldn't care less about most of the Legionnaires except the leader. You know, it's right. Just like office culture kind of shit. You know, like when the regional manager shows up, he doesn't give a fuck about me, a waiter. He's only talking to my boss,
right?
Or the general manager, and then all that shit gets trickled down from somebody else's mouth. And that's kind of what RJ Brand would be, or that's kind of how the behavior of the highest up senior Legionnaires would be with Brand, between Brand and the rest of the team.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't remember if they describe it in here or not, but at some point we know Marla, presumably when they're actual adults, young adults, 18-ish, he steps back some. And I guess what he went on to do was he started the Legion Academy. And he was...
Oh, that would be logical, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was on Wikipedia or something. But anyway, he was... he had Bouncing Boy's position, basically, before he handed it over to Bouncing Boy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that would explain why we never saw him, because the Legion Academy, story-wise, is boring as hell. So
right.
That's where Marla was all that.
Well, that's where he is once they're not 15 anymore, like when they're closer to 18.
Yeah.
Where he is otherwise, we don't know. But
once they get closer to 18, there's never any new young Legionnaires anymore, right? I think that's kind of strange that, like, it began as superhero clubhouse teens from the future, but as they age, they're not bringing in any new teenagers. And I mean, just saying that, it sounds like, well, yeah, why would they? That's gross, you know? Like,
right.
It's really bizarre that they would be like, hey, hey, Ultra Boy, let's go get some more teenagers for our team. That seems gross, but
right.
But it wasn't this.
Even like the Academy people we see, first of all, they must be really terrible because they spend 10, 15 years in the Academy.
Yeah.
Like, what's his name? Power Boy.
Poor old Power Boy, never graduated.
Comic Queen, etc. But they all look like adults. Well, we know Jacques is supposed to be a lot younger than the original members, but it's not evident in the drawing, really.
Yeah, even when he joins, he's basically the same age, or he's 2 years younger than them or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's younger, but he's probably like 18 versus 26 or whatever they are at that point.
But yeah, there's never any in the academy or on the team. There's never again anybody who's 14, 15, 16.
Well, until 5 years later. Then you get like Kano.
Yeah, I guess. I'm still not quite sure how old she's supposed to be. She does seem like she's younger, yeah. But they sex her up in that previous issue to this one, so I don't know.
Teenage girls.
Yeah. Continue. What do you mean?
You gotta you gotta watch what they're wearing when they go to school. You gotta like turn around, young lady. You gotta put something else on. They try to be risque sometimes.
Oh.
I'm told. I'm not trying to mansplain.
You can mansplain to me, another man. It's okay.
Oh, okay. The blind leading the blind.
But yeah, that's true. They do eventually kind of reintroduce young characters, but it never really worked. So it was maybe for the best.
And then, of course, SW6, I guess. Like Chameleon Boy goes over there to be the Marla.
Oh, that's right. I think he only did it because the young Chameleon Boy died. He's like, there needs to be a chameleon on this team.
You don't think he was there because he thought someone needs to watch these kids?
This page, they kind of introduce, or they begin to introduce Reap Daggle, Chameleon Boy, the future Chameleon Boy, and how they're trying to recruit him for the team. Out of the blue, RJ Brand says, I know a kid who we should try and get on this team. And Marla's like, what the fuck? He's an asshole. But they still coerce him into being on the team for some odd, strange reason.
It's like, I know this kid that we could throw into harm's way.
Yeah, perfect candidate. He's got my genetics.
Yeah, most rich people try to keep their kids out of armed conflict, but this is like an embarrassment to them or something. I'll just throw them out there. Put them in the front line. Yeah, I mean, almost any way you slice it, it's hard to rationalize RJ as like a moral character because he went for years knowing Chameleon Boy and never bothering to tell him.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever does tell them. They only have to figure it out to save his life.
They have some adventures. It's been a while since I've read them, but yeah, I think Levitz maybe does something to try and have the two of them come to terms with the reality of their relationship. But
yeah, to get stranded together somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe somebody else could have done it better than Paul Levitz did. I mean, as a person who can't remember how Paul Levitz handled it.
Right. We'll get to it.
Yeah. We'll get to it someday. But they I guess they lure in Reap Daggle with the idea that he can fight prejudice because that's a big issue for him. And that's
so he's like kind of a social justice warrior?
I guess so, yeah.
Or an activist, as we would call them, I guess. So
Marla says he's been out helping the poor, pitching in at orphanages, and visiting hospitals as a volunteer.
Cool. Is this Tom Bierbaum in the upper right-hand corner? Or who do you think that is?
I don't know. I think all these people are cameos. They may be more like Chris Sprouse's bros. These are kind of unique looking people.
Sprouse and his wife are in the middle.
Oh, okay.
But this guy in the upper right, he looks like Bierbaum, but I guess like every other comic creator looks like that. You look like that.
Yeah, he kind of has some lettering on his shirt, but I don't know what it could say.
Like his name.
Well, right, but I can't make out what word that would be, and I don't recognize it.
Yeah. It's definitely not Giffen.
Yeah, it must be a Chris Sprouse in-joke.
Mm-hmm.
His brother or something. Do you find that the personality of Chameleon Boy here is a little bit different than he ever was portrayed? Like, he's not like Chameleon Boy from like issue 1 of this series. He's not the impish comedian,
right?
Silver Age Chameleon Boy.
Who's not Jack Webb, Espionage Squad.
Yeah. He's like a troubled teen or something. Well, he's not a troubled teen because he's like this great guy, but he has sort of a, I don't know, he seems like he has a chip on his shoulder in a way.
Right. Well, and then he acts a lot like RJ acts in this issue, in the first issue, where, he's like, a dream never dies, and he's very, in a way, it's almost like he's a chameleon. His personality just keeps changing.
Yeah, can't nail this guy down. Mm-hmm. What's the word? Mercurial. That's a good word for this.
Isn't that like someone who's kind of nuts and gets angry real easy?
Oh, I thought it was a person who was changeable.
Oh, okay.
But maybe I'm wrong. I'll cut out this whole thing so I don't look like I don't know what I'm talking about. Is that a person who gets mad easily?
I don't know. I thought it was, but what the fuck do I know?
Well, what the fuck do I know?
Someone's mood or behavior is changeable and unpredictable.
Hey, that's what I said. I said changeable.
Yeah, or someone who is clever, lively, and quick. So I guess you're right.
Yeah, we're kind of both right. Once again, we're both right.
As always. As always, because we are experts.
Experts. On more things than just the Legion of Superheroes.
We need to pull a Seth and make our own plaques.
Oh,
Legion expert.
I think we're back to Giffen art, huh? For the balance of the issue, the last 3 pages.
Right. He does the frame. We'll lead into the next issue, I guess.
I just saw the original art for this page on Comic Art Fans.
Mm-hmm.
The last panel is just a photocopy of this panel, and then he's drawn like a head or a helmet or something on this, and that's pasted up. That's all.
Tell me again, the last panel on page 20.
On page 20, panel 9 and 7 is the same drawing, but 20 or 9, panel 9 has the addition of like a head or a helmet or something bouncing across it.
Oh, okay. I see it now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still love his artwork, but like I was looking right at that, and I didn't necessarily read it as a helmet moving. Like I see it now. That's a cloud underneath it, I guess. I just thought it was a pile of junk or something.
Well, the context is that they're trying to decide whether they should enter the fray and try and help out Laurel Gand killing bad guys, I guess.
This is what happens when you don't want motion lines because they look too silly.
Yeah.
Like it makes everything static.
I feel like it kind of worked on the black and white original art version, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It worked a little bit better anyway.
Right.
And the coloring on this page is could be tightened up a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't want to be too critical of this old comic book.
McCraw really likes those tannish browns.
Well, and this middle tier is a continuing scene that's chopped into 3.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see that like this thing is a different color than this same thing in the previous panel.
Maybe it's getting later.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, this is we're sort of picking up where we left off in the previous issue with the main Legionnaires, and they have just escaped Mordru, or I guess they were released because of Brock negotiating with Mordru, and they sprung Ron Vidar and Misa, and they reunited with Laurel Gand when they left that planet, and they are regrouping. Is this her house?
I think are they still stranded?
No, they're no longer stranded. They're going to pick up her kid. Spoiler.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't seem like they're at her house specifically because she's beating up bad guys right by her house. But yeah, they're on their way somewhere, huh? And who is it? Is this Vidar and Cosmic Boy? It must be, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ron Vidar is a guy who's younger than all the Legionnaires. He was the heir apparent new kid Legionnaire, but he never really became that. He was always in his lederhosen at the Time Institute.
Yeah.
He got a job.
Mm-hmm. Brainiac's friend, I guess. But yeah, it didn't seem like they ever intended him to be anything but a supporting cast guy. He was kind of pudgy little guy, maybe with a mullet.
Yeah, he had a dumb haircut, that's for sure. Like it was like almost like a Betty Boop kind of haircut or something at first, with like curls on the front and then like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought these guys were there because they were waiting for her to come back. I don't think they just ran into them on the way.
Yeah, it says so on this page. I think it explains what they're doing. He's like, whatever it is that Laurel brought us here to do. So I guess her baby is on Zur, but it's also crawling with cooned bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to fight her way through them to get to the home of her baby daddy. And this is the fabulous first appearance of Laurel Gand's nanny character, who sticks around to the very end, I think.
It's a Dominator, right?
No, I don't think so. Almost, but I think later they depict her with more of a tall head.
Oh, they start drawing her differently. Okay.
And she doesn't quite have the fangs that the Dominators have. It's the looks like little more like some kind of horizontal thing on her mouth area.
Do you think he originally intended her to be breastfeeding?
That's just what I was thinking. I was looking at that page.
That's what the pose looks like, you know?
Yeah. It really does look kind of like that. I don't know, probably.
Yeah.
She was probably just going to be totally naked.
Right.
Like, now that I'm thinking about it, like if you had a character that couldn't be harmed, why wouldn't they just be naked all the time?
Yeah. I don't know.
This drawing of a rock Kryn Cosmic Boy with the dawning realization that Laurel canned, and it's a funny drawing.
Yeah.
Of him.
It kind of feels like he's trying to figure out how to distinguish the two characters as he goes on these 2 pages. Vidar and Kryn, like their haircuts keep slightly changing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like if you think back to the cover of issue 1, yeah, Cosmic Boy has this haircut.
He looks exactly shaggy like that. Right.
And here it's combed, and he's beginning to look like the receding hairline Cosmic Boy from the Adult Legion stories from the 60s.
What happened to the stubble?
I don't know. He got cleaned up.
He's got the pink shirt to remind us who he is, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and Ron Vidar's got a green shirt since he's a Green Lantern.
Right.
And even he looks a little bit different than he did back where they first showed him being devoured by the monster in Mordru's dungeon. Like he was real beefy. And now they're kind of scaling that back, or Giffen's kind of scaling it back, and he looks looks leaner, I guess. I mean, not that he's shown very much outside of just like his face.
Takes a lot out of you, man.
That's true.
I guess we don't know if he was ever a Green Lantern.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he wouldn't have had to been, really, huh? Like, Mordru could have just kidnapped him to spite Laurel Gand and hurt him or try to extract information from him or something. He may not have ever been a Green Lantern. You're right.
Right.
Good call.
Yeah. I don't know. It never really made... everybody loves him as Green Lantern. He looks kind of cool, I guess, but I don't need a Green Lantern on my Legion.
Not at all. Well, how do you feel about... Maybe we'll talk about it when they start to reveal the Celeste Rockfish story.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems unnecessary to me, but it seemed very urgent to them. Like, we need to explain what's going on with the Green Lanterns in the 30th century.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's like, well, that's about the only thing from the 20th century that would probably still be around that far into the future, because like the Guardians are immortals or whatever. So you kind of assume that there's, they're a bigger presence in the 20th century. What happened to them? But also, yeah, I don't really care. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, I think just keep them out of sight, out of mind. Like, maybe they're still around, but maybe not.
Well, and eventually they got rid of them.
It takes a lot of the urgency out of... Yeah. It takes a lot of urgency out of the Green Lantern book. And then what happens when they decide to get rid of them in the Green Lantern book? You're like, we know they're going to come back in the 31st century.
Yeah.
30th.
Definitely makes sense to leave them out entirely. Except a dead one, maybe, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
Well, that was the comic. Did you read these text pages?
Yeah, I did.
This is from Assets Magazine. It's like Forbes or Fortune, I guess.
Some kind of propaganda piece for Brand.
Yeah.
Talking about how he picked himself up by his bootstraps and through his determination and grit, being such a rugged individual, he made himself wealthy.
Yeah, the tone's just right, huh? It's exactly like one of those stupid rich guy profiles. That, they probably pay for those, right? Like when you get profiled in Fortune, it's like your company paid for that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the closest they come to being critical in here is like his Macaulay is suspicious about his origins, like where did he come from? But that doesn't even make sense to me. It's like, it should be like, where did he get his money? That should be the part they're probing, not.
It also is like if it's Macaulay being skeptical, it's sort of the pot calling the kettle black. Like, you're also another rich guy, Get real. Yeah, I guess we probably covered most of what there is to talk about on this, huh?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly illuminating here.
Actually, looking at these last couple of paragraphs, it says the need for new stars has subsided, so the company's diversified its operations. And they're selling leading suppliers of anti-gravity belts. And Brand's a financier of time travel research and telepsychic techniques.
Telepsychics.
It sounds like he's
Like
decided
Dion?
to.
Like my psychic friend Dion?
Oh, Dionne Warwick. Yeah.
The telepsychic.
Miss Cleo.
Miss Cleo. Oh, right.
No, what Brand has done is started to sell the shit that Brainiac 5 invented.
Right.
That seems sketchy
He's
to me.
like his IP farm or
yeah, exactly.
farm. That makes more sense.
And yeah, it says communication systems. Like, remember in the first annual where they make a big deal about how we've gone all holographic for our we don't have telephones anymore or communicators. It's holograms where they pop up like in Star Wars and stuff. Like Brand's like, I'm selling that. I'm gonna make money off of this. I'm gonna make money off of those anti-gravity belts that the Legion doesn't use anymore. They got the rings.
Right.
Where you're selling the belts, et cetera, et cetera. That sounds shitty.
Totally. It's interesting what you could do with that. Like, was the Legion trying to keep the Miracle Machine safe from RJ?
Yeah.
Like, he wants to, retro engineer that thing, figure out how it was built so he can mass produce it.
Definitely. Yeah. He's probably always coming over to the clubhouse. He's like, hey, could you guys show me that Miracle Machine you got? And they're like, no.
He just keeps directing them to like fight bad guys on planets he's planning to take over and sell as new planets.
Yeah. Well, and when Brainiac 5 invents something that will defeat a specific race of villain, or like Brainiac 5 invents a deal that'll take out Chameleon Chief. Oh, right. I mean, Brand maybe wouldn't go for the anti-Durlin weapons, but as an example, he might sell a patent for that anti-Durlin weapon. Brainiac 5 is like, maybe I should have sold that patent. But like he has an NDA or some shit like that, or one of those contracts where if you invent it on company time, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. It automatically becomes property of Brand.
Yeah. But see, that wouldn't work either because they're a club. They're an independent outfit. I don't know.
Well, they think they are. They're dumb kids.
Yeah, I think Brand probably stole these things from the kids.
His R&D.
Marla was complicit.
Yeah, he helped.
Are people always like, how come Brainiac 5 isn't rich? Like, we see all the dock workers flying around with anti-gravity belts that Brainiac 5 invented, but you're not rich, Brainiac 5. RJ Brand is rich.
Well, he's not that. He has no like social intelligence or common sense, so
yeah,
he's probably easily bamboozled by Brand. We're doing this for the good of the universe, and just stay in your lab and come up with new shit. It's like, how's that AI coming along? It's like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I killed a bunch of people. It's like, come on, you can do it.
Yeah, try it again.
Move fast and break things.
What if you turned your killer AI into a smart home?
Yeah.
Yeah, RJ Brand, he's a piece of shit. He's not a great guy. I think that's the moral of this story.
Yes. Really, this story would have made more sense and all if instead of like RJ feeling some sort of debt to Marla, they'd written it so that Marla feels some sort of debt to RJ. Because why else does he keep working for this guy?
I mean, we've been saying this all along. The story about RJ Brand and Marla that needs to be told is yet to be told.
Right.
That angle that you just said where really Marla ought to have some kind of like a debt that could never be repaid to Brand.
I believe the Star Wars folks call it a life debt.
Oh, life debt. Okay, yeah. But I mean, if they each have some dirt on each other, that even would connect them even tighter.
Well, maybe he does. Maybe no, he didn't know he was the Durlian. I was going to say maybe he feels guilty for selling him into slavery.
I mean, he might feel guilty for having sold anyone into slavery ever. Like maybe that's the only time he did it, and he's like, "Oh, I feel dirty now." And Brand could come out and be like, "Look, Marla, I know about that kid you sold into slavery. It was me, you son of a bitch."
Dope.
And then Marla's like, "Well, listen, I happen to know that you abandoned your family, you piece of rich garbage. What would happen if the universe found out about that?" And the truth is the universe wouldn't care.
This keeps opening up ideas to me that seem like they would be better than the choices they made. Like, what if Marla suspected who he was, figured out who his son was, and recruited him, RJ not knowing that he brought his son into his orbit. Does this guy look familiar to you?
And yeah, Marla's like, Brand, if you don't give me a raise, I think someone might go on a deadly mission. Yeah, it's this issue, like, after having this conversation, it sucks. It's like a total Brand puff piece. Yeah. When Brand really needed to be revealed.
He clearly paid for this.
Yeah, paid for the whole issue.
The whole issue is just an extension of this Assets magazine thing. This is like the video that plays before it.
Right. Yeah, it's all told by Marla. Marla got paid. He had to work on a weekend to do it.
Right.
He's like, I'd like to tell you about the time that I met my greatest mentor and friend, RJ Brand. I've never met a finer individual than RJ Brand, more benevolent with his money.
You know, I was just thinking about Marla and RJ earlier this week because in the news, because what's his name? Who's the guy who lives in the small house and he's like Mr. Folksy?
That's it's Berkshire Hathaway, right? It's Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Apparently he had like some guy who never got all the attention but did a lot of the real work, I guess, who died recently.
Oh yeah, did he die or he retired?
Oh, maybe he retired. I don't know. I thought he died. Yeah, they did like some piece about his life or something on NPR, and he sounded like he was sort of a Marla type, like he was doing a lot of the real work.
Right. Doing the heavy lifting. He was the real brains behind Berkshire Hathaway. If it wasn't for this guy, they'd still be selling washing machines out in Wichita or wherever they were.
Right.
Yeah, I think maybe at this time, the Bierbaums and Giffen were probably modeling RJ Brand after Warren Buffett. I wouldn't be surprised about that.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Like, obviously, back in Adventure 350, that wasn't, I mean, Warren Buffett's so old, he was around then, but I don't know if he was the hot shit that he is now for making money.
Had this really stupid obsession or lionization or idolization of millionaires, billionaires forever now, at least since I think it probably started right after the Great Depression, because you notice like all those old superheroes, like every single fucking one of them, except for Superman, of course, was a millionaire. Even ones you wouldn't guess, like Wildcat, millionaire, you know. They're all millionaires. Yeah, they're all millionaires just for the fuck of it.
I thought Wildcat was a boxing coach. Is that just a retcon or what? Or he owned the gym and he bought it with his millions?
I think they later said maybe he lost his wealth, and once they said, "Hey, we sure have a lot of millionaires. Maybe we should have some guys doing other things." But it's sort of like that dream fulfillment thing on the alter ego side as well as the hero side. So they can be physically powerful, proud, specimens, but then also they're super successful and adored and just rich.
Well, I mean, it also helps them to never have the obligations of an average Joe to pay the rent, buy Batmobiles and stuff, right?
Right.
I would always assume that that's why those guys are millionaires, because, they can pay for exotic locales and boats and babes and stuff and not have to worry about paying the rent. Like, maybe the first one of those guys who had those problems was fucking Spider-Man. Could that be?
So I don't know if that's Ditko or Lee's doing, but that was smart. Like, because that makes the story better. Like, he has to figure out how to pay rent while he's fighting Mysterio or whatever. Yeah,
I think when Stan Lee was writing and drawing Spider-Man, that was foremost on his mind of what Peter Parker ought to be doing is great power, great responsibility, having problems of youth, and not having to share credit with anyone else.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, I get it. Taking personal responsibility.
Oh, and the second text page is this is some intercepted Kundian communiques where they're just complaining about Laurel Gant fucking up all their business. And I guess it implies that the dialogue that they're having implies that they're losing the battle, but they won't won't fess up to it. They still are calling humans garbage and snakes and worms.
That's the best line in it. It's the only thing I remember about it. The snakes among the human worms.
Yeah, they call Laurel
There's
Gambish
Green Lantern.
She-Demon.
Green Lantern is mentioned. So.
Oh, all right. Whew.
What a relief. What a relief.
Glad he's still a Green Lantern.
Well, he's not, but I'm glad he still was a Green Lantern, right?
He had all of 2 adventures as a Green Lantern, both failures. But
yeah, you notice he never becomes Green Lantern again. Like after they melt the ring off, they're like, "We're not giving you another one."
like ordinarily, a superhero would have a quest where he tries to get his powers back, and instead, it's like, I'm just gonna be a dad.
Like maybe this is for the best. And another thing, like that time trapper shit, you would have thought he would have gotten in some serious trouble for that.
From the time trapper?
Like the Guardians.
Oh, that secret mission that he went on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the Guardians are around. I kind of got the impression that, well, yeah, I don't know. We read something where some Green Lantern showed up.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Well, that was in the annual #1, wasn't it? Where a Green Lantern's talking to Marty Allen, and she's like, "Don't you fucking come to Earth, you fucking Green Lantern." So I guess there's still a Green Lantern Corps, but maybe by the time that Ron Vidar is a Green Lantern, there's not many left. I don't know.
We've got to read that fill-in, that Green Lantern one. I guess it wasn't a fill-in, but it feels like a
backup story or something.
Well, they did a whole issue. I don't think the Legion's in it at all. It just explains the history of the Green Lanterns and why they got kicked off the Earth.
Yeah, let's read that.
Yeah. Now, I've heard it's not a very good explanation, or it's not. Fans were not satisfied with the explanation, I don't think, but we should check it out so we can bitch about it.
Yeah, we should see who's right, us or the fans.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it's not going to be the fans.
That's what divides the fans from the experts.
We know it's best. I guess another note about this text page is it's an email to King John of Pasnick. He was in the some earlier stuff, I think, but I think he plays a bigger role later, maybe later in the 5 years later period.
I don't remember that guy. Some expert I am.
He has sort of a human walrus look. Yeah, look it up. Tell me if I'm right before we talk any more about it.
King John. What John of what?
Pasnick, Pasnic. And it's spelled Jonn, John.
Oh, of course.
Futuristic spelling.
Futuristic. That's very contemporary.
2 N's? Really?
Well, everybody, even when parents name kids today, if the name sounds more traditional, it is spelled weird.
Yeah.
Fucking parents.
Breeders.
I think maybe. And can you see that? Probably not.
I recognize that cover. First appearance of King John in that old issue, Superboy 170 something.
Maybe. I'm having trouble digging stuff up on this guy.
Yeah, it's weird. He doesn't come up in a Google search, does he? There we go.
Did you find him?
Yeah, I had to make sure Google wasn't trying to correct my spelling of John.
Right. Oh, shit. It did that to me, too.
Yeah, there she is. Or there he is in that issue. It says Duo Damsel and Chameleon Boy land on Pasnick, where Duo Damsel splits up, leaving Cam to wait for her return. A large bird grabs Orange Duo Damsel, bringing her to King John.
Uh-huh.
They don't show him in any of their scans, but yeah, this is Superboy 193. I mean, to me, it makes sense that King John's from way back and not a new creation. He's like a deep cut supporting character.
Yeah, I guess I could see it going either way with their Giffen's weird fascination with he makes a lot of this stuff look Victorian or older, like the big ruffly shirts and shit.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of a neat idea to make the king of someplace be a big general, sort of old-fashioned kind of way to do it, you know?
Uh-huh.
But I guess he's still a good guy. He's on the side of righteousness. I mean, he's a king. He's probably a piece of crap. But,
so what does he look like?
Oh, I didn't see a picture of him.
Oh, okay.
I can really only remember him as like a Jason Pearson drawing. He's wearing like a yellow kind of military, lots of medals type of thing. And
so he's like a dictator. Well, we'll get to it. I'll find it. I'll find it when we cover that issue. Okay.
So that's the story of King John of Pasnick.
It's okay. Were we going to say anything about the cover? No.
Oh,
about the art discrepancy? Or
yeah, it turns out it looks like Swan and Anderson just did the heads.
And the rocket ship.
I think the rocket ship, they just scooched it down to make the logo fit. So that may be just a production department thing.
You think? I thought the fin looked different. Like it was angled differently. But
oh, that could be. There are some like little like fine lines, fine vertical lines on it. But I kind of felt like that might have just got wiped out. So it wouldn't cause havoc behind Lightning Lad's head, maybe. I didn't compare too closely, though.
You know, when I first saw it, I thought it was still, because so much of it was the same, I thought maybe that was Swan's first attempt, and they were like, it isn't Kurt Swanish enough.
Yeah, what's weird is that the bodies look Kurt Swan to me, but they're Giffen drawings. And like the Lightning Lad pose is like one of those really like bland looking Kurt Swan guy standing there, you know?
Right. And the Saturn girl, she has like one leg perfectly straight and one angled out a little, like he does in his the sheet on the back.
Right.
The character guide or whatever it is.
Yeah, so Giffen like pretty successfully knocked off the boring Kurt Swan style, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But he couldn't do the faces. He couldn't nail the Kurt Swan heads. So they had to bring in the OG to do them. Yeah, I've got to buy that Direct Currents. If you find Direct Currents number 27, you can see the original Giffen heads. I looked all over online to find it.
Not on Read Comics Online. You know, I feel like I've seen some of those issues on the Internet Archive.
I'll look there, but I feel like I found a few different, like a couple of blogs and here and there, people have put up entire scans of them. But there's no complete source of all of them. And I'm surprised by that. Yeah. I mean, it's really boring and not too useful generally, but I'm surprised that there hasn't been somebody who's like, yeah, we need to put all the Direct Currents up online.
Maybe they'll collect them in an expensive omnibus.
Oh, geez.
Marvel's doing that right now with their sort of equivalent of Direct Currents. It's called